Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Beat the Big Guys. I am so happy about my guest that I'll be talking to in the next few minutes. Her name is Brinkley Hutchings. Hey, Brinkley.
Hello. Hi, Sandy.
For those of you who can see us, we're dressed practically alike, and we did not plan this in advance. We're both wearing blue and white dresses on this lovely May day. And just as a reminder, for those of you who do like to watch an interview instead of listen, you can do that on our YouTube channel. But for the rest of you, most of you are probably listening to this on Apple or Spotify or one of those shows. But anyway, without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce my guest from the great state of Alabama, and then we will let Brinkley take over. Okay, want to give me just a minute, Brinkley?
Okay. Thank you for having me, Sandy.
Oh, you're so welcome. Brinkley Hutchings spent most of her childhood exploring and playing on the beach along Mobile Bay. She was an environmental activist while at UNC Wilmington. And while there, she observed that all of her peers seemed to be doing environmental work because they spent their childhood outdoors. So, after graduation, she chose to focus on cultivating the next generation of environmental stewards. Brinkley is an Brinkley is inspired by children's sense of wonder, curiosity, and play, and she loves to share her enthusiasm for the natural world. So I can't wait to hear all about what you're doing and why you chose this path. And if I didn't mention, Brinkley Hutchings is from the state of Alabama, more specifically, Fairhope. So, okay, Brinkley, take it away.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. I am so excited to be on this show today. A little bit about my story is, like Sandy said, I grew up exploring in the outdoors, spent my childhood catching frogs and swimming in every body of water that I could find. And I really feel like that is the best thing about childhood is exploring the outdoors and going on adventures and really learning more about the world around you and getting curious about the world around you. It led me to study environmental science at UNC Wilmington in North Carolina. And while I was there, I was very involved with the student environmental group and the community there. We were doing efforts like stopping a multi-billion-dollar cement company from building on the banks of the Cape Fear River. We were doing different efforts like getting a sustainability green fee at our campus to raise money for sustainability projects at our school. And I met so many wonderful people that care about taking care of the natural world. And after school, I wanted to continue that kind of work and making a positive difference in communities. And I lived all over the country. I was in a program called Green Corps, and we were doing different grassroots organizing projects like working to get more trails along the bayous in Houston and working to protect the parks along the Chattahoochee River in Georgia. And while I loved that work, I was also always asking myself the question, how can I make the biggest difference in the world? What difference am I here to make? And when I really thought about it, I had a friend ask me, what is it that you would love to do? And I said, well, this isn't a real job, but what I really love is being with kids outside. And turns out she was a career coach, and I ended up hiring her as my career coach. And she helped me start my dream, which was to create a nature school. And I started it in Wilmington, North Carolina, where I went to college. And we had a chapter there for 8 years. Actually, today is the last day of the North Carolina chapter of Nature Connect. It's transitioning over. I'm passing it on to Kavina Casaletto with Three Pines Project, and I'm so excited and grateful that she's continuing on the education program there. And I run the programs in Alabama. So in 2017, I moved home and started the Alabama chapter of Nature Connect. It's a school. We have an outdoor preschool, kindergarten, homeschool enrichment programs, summer camps, and it's all about getting kids outside and helping them to fall in love with the natural world. So hopefully they'll be the next generation of environmental stewards.
That sounds absolutely fabulous. Is this a good place for me to step in, or did you have a little
Sure,
bit more to say?
sure.
Well, I can I can really truly relate to what you're talking about when you tried to change the world a certain way, and that was when you were working as an activist. And I imagine that the organization you were focused on changing their behavior with Titan Cement.
Yes. We're
Okay.
working in Wilmington. We were working to stop Titan Cement plant from building there.
And I understand that was successful.
Yes, after 8 years, a small group of us, it started out a small group of us, and through asking more and more to join us, it became over 20,000 of us in Wilmington, North Carolina. And over 8 years, we raised enough support to stop Titan Cement from building there.
That is fantastic. It always does start small.
It
And
does.
for you listeners out there, just keep that in mind. It starts out small. It's not going to stay small. It just won't. It will get bigger. People will come to you. People will come to you and offer certain types of advice. It might be legal. It might be media. It might be outreach. But people will come to you, will see what you're doing, and offer their expertise. And they won't want to be. They usually always don't want to be charged for it. They just want to help. So keep that in mind. You start small and you will get big, and that will come later. So you worked with I believe Kane Darrell.
Yes, Kane Darrell
Okay.
is a good friend of mine who was just on your show.
And most of you listeners probably recall that I have interviewed Ms. Darrell in the past, and now I'm going to ask you to help refresh my memory. Brinkley, was she actually threatened with lawsuit for speaking out against the
He
Titan Cement?
was.
She
Yes.
was. And not only was she threatened with lawsuit, they actually did sue her to get her to shut up. And thank goodness for laws in this country that will punish organizations for using a lawsuit to get people to shut up just because they don't like what they're saying. So
Mm-hmm.
thank goodness for laws like that. When I invited Ms. Darrell Kane onto my show, one of the terms of the settlement was that she's not allowed to discuss it. But guess what? I can. I can talk about it. So there's nothing stopping me from discussing what happened to Ms. Dowell. So that was a very fun episode. That we could have a conversation about something that was relevant, and as long as she didn't contribute to that part of the conversation, she was abiding by the terms of the settlement, and then I could get the word out too. Thank goodness for the First Amendment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, First Amendment. So, but getting back to the work that you've done, so can you get into a little bit more detail on why, instead of continuing your work as a community mobilizer and fighting the big guys, which in this case was a cement company that would have come in and destroyed the ecosystem
Mm-hmm.
in Cape Fear,
Yes, on the Cape Fear River.
the Cape
Mm-hmm.
Fear River. Okay. So what was it? I mean, was there an aha moment where you said, this, while as great as this is, I think I'm destined for other things?
Yes, that's a good question. I think there were several aha moments for me, um, probably spanning over a year or so, as I was really asking myself the question, what am I here to do? And I grew up with a father who always encouraged me to think about making a difference. And if there's a need in a community, then you see how you can help. And when I really started thinking about the environmental movement and the state of the planet and what's happening with the natural world, I started thinking about, why was I doing that kind of work, that kind of conservation work, environmental activism work? And it was because I spent my childhood outside and I grew to love the outdoors. And so as I got older, I wanted to protect it. And when I would ask my peers that were working for different environmental nonprofits, why do you do this work? The stories were similar. Oh, I spent my childhood, in the rivers and in the woods, and oh, I remember catching fireflies at night, and I would go out all day and I wouldn't come home until the street lights turned on. I mean, stories left and right about why people were doing work to protect the environment was because of their childhood. And I started to think about the fact that children this was right around the time when smartphones were coming out and all the access that children were having to YouTube and Netflix and all of that instant access. It wasn't just, you know, when they got home from school, they could watch one of the afternoon TV shows and then that show was done. And so then you went on to play. That constant access to all of this media is such a different childhood than what I had. And when I paid attention to children, you know, even in restaurants where you see children in front of a tablet, you know, just that dulled out look in their eyes. I mean, I know what it's like to be in front of a computer and my eyes get tired too. And it's just, it's not the way we're meant to live. And children are meant to have that sparkle in their eye and that sense of joy and wonder. And I've always loved children and always loved being outside with children. And so I started to think about how can I make, you know, a positive difference in the world in a way that also brings me joy and really nourishes me. And what's the most fulfilling work that I can imagine? And it's really helping children connect with the natural world so that they have a childhood similar to the one that I had. And, you know, and it's not a fault of the parents today. People are so busy. We live in such a busy world and parents are tired and might turn, you know, and technology can be a tool and can help adults when they need a moment, you know. But how can we continue to build outdoor time into childhood? And how do we make that happen? And so I have many parents come to me and say, I really want them to have more outdoor time than I can give them. And that's why I want them to come to your school and to your summer camps. And that's what we're here for, is to provide such wonderful experiences for children that they create memories that last a lifetime is the hope, so that when they grow up, they'll have fond memories of spending time in the woods and the creeks and catching salamanders and building rock bridges with their friends and all of those things. So that when opportunities arise in their life to contribute to protection of the natural world, we hope that they will, you know, have it in their heart to do so.
I love it. And I can't help but wonder if it for the more schools like this that are close to urban, I mean, I'm sorry, yeah, urban areas, the better. Because if you grew up in a rural area like I did, and I could just fall out my back door and I was literally in a field, a cornfield, and I couldn't escape the outdoors growing up. But it's easy to miss it in an urban setting,
Right.
where you fall out the back door and there isn't a cornfield. So do you have like a 5-year plan? Like how many schools you hope to envision, or 10-year plan in the country of schools
Well,
like yours?
Well, I would love to support people all over the country to start nature schools. So I offer consulting to help people start nature schools. As far as our nature school in Alabama, it's called the Nature Connect School. And our plan is to keep expanding our preschool and kindergarten programs, homeschool enrichment, and summer camps.
Love it. So, before I forget, I just found out just yesterday that it turns up that there are more children now than 50 years ago are becoming nearsighted because they're not spending time outdoors and they're not developing the ability to see at a distance because they're spending all the time indoors. They spend a lot of time in school, okay, and not enough time outdoors. So there's just one more reason that children should be outside more.
Right. Yeah, the research is coming out more and more about the importance of children being in the outdoors, how it's good for their mental health, their emotional health, their physical health. We're meant to be outside.
And their eyesight. And
Yes,
and
and their
and
eyesight. Yeah.
I admit that's intuitive. Lots of
Mhm.
not everything's intuitive. Not everything is what you would expect. But this case, well, yeah, if you're not outside, how do you develop your farsightedness?
Mhm.
So I thought that was really fascinating.
That
And
is
that's just
interesting.
one more reason for you to have more programs like yours
Yeah.
everywhere in the country. So, and I also wanted to talk for just a minute about the how fantastic I think it is and how right I think you are about teaching children and reaching them when they're young and before how for lack of a better way to say it, before the nonsense gets in their heads. Get them
Mm-hmm.
while they're young. When my husband and I were in our 20s, and this is going back into the late 80s, we wanted to work with a group of children in an inner city school. And we went to a undergrad, excuse me, we went to an elementary school and asked them to please give us the names of 4 or 5 youngsters who are no different from any of the others, but other than they might have had a little extra spunk to them, like had a little spark, and thought maybe they could. That was the only requirement we had. And we were given the names of 4 or 5 children, and gradually it expanded to 20. And we've
Mm-hmm.
grown extremely close to these kids. We took them on field trips. We showed them a life, outside of, the middle of the city. And we've grown very close. We had a reunion only a couple of years ago, and every single child, they're now in their 40s, attended our reunion. But
Oh, wow. I know that
it's
was special.
it's very special, and we would do it. We would do it all again, but we were limited. We're limited to these 20 people, 20
Mm-hmm.
wonderful people. Some of them are doctors, some of them are biologists. They've all turned out quite well. Um, so we thought, well, that was great. We're glad we did it, but there must be a way to reach more children, and as you pointed out, to get them to reach them before the nonsense gets to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is not going to surprise you. That's how the charter school movement in New Orleans got started.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard of the charter schools in New Orleans.
I have.
That's how it started. It was the Laurel Eagles, which was a great program, but we were limited. So I said, well, how can we do better? Charter schools. And here we are today. And of course, that was, I say, 35 years ago, 30 years ago, that we just realized that that needed to be done. So I just wanted to share that with you, that
Yeah.
connection I have with seeing, yeah, that activist work you did was fantastic, but what you're doing now is, as you said, cultivating the next generation of environmental stewards.
Right. Right. That's the hope. That's the hope. Well, how can we have a long-lasting impact for environmental protection?
You mentioned your dad it was an influence in your life. He always encouraged you to do something that would make a difference.
Yes.
Do you remember how he phrased it?
Hmm. Well, he always said that when there's a need in the community, there's always a solution.
Hmm.
And and it's always good to think about how you can help. How can you help make a difference?
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
That's just beautiful. And on the other hand, I'd like to point out to our listeners that even if you didn't have, a wonderful father like Mr. Hutchings obviously was. Is it Mr. Hutchings?
Yes.
That even if you didn't, you can still follow your own heart and do exactly what you think needs to be done. I'm a big believer in, yeah, support is wonderful, family support is wonderful, but don't depend on it. I mean, don't give up if you don't have it. That's for sure.
Yes.
Because and the interesting thing is, it's our family members that sometimes understand us a certain way, see us as a certain person, and may not realize there's this other person inside you with this dream that you'd like to live. And it's not that they don't care, not that they don't love you. They sometimes don't see it or sometimes don't understand it.
Right. And I truly believe that there's a vision inside all of us, and a dream inside all of us. Everybody's here to contribute and make a difference. And it's different for everyone. So really figuring out what's in your heart, what do you feel called to do, and start taking steps in that direction, because the
And,
world needs us to do what we feel called to do.
and believe in yourself. I recently found out about something called imposter syndrome. I just
Yes.
recently heard of the term, and my thought was, oh, bad, bad thing. I, I mean, how many? In fact, I'm seeing it today now that I understand the concept and understand what it is. Someone with imposter syndrome, in case there's 1 or 2 people out there that doesn't know what it is, someone with imposter syndrome believes they are not truly an expert and believe they don't have the right to speak on something because they're not the messiah of that particular field. bad in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's I can see imposter syndrome positively keep pulling back people from doing good work and talking about their work. What do
Yeah.
you think?
Yes. Um, Sorry, I got distracted for a minute because someone walked in.
No,
So
actually, you know what? Let's just stop that because rather than throw it back at you, which wasn't really fair of me to do. But I have cases where I've invited people to be on my show and they've refused because of imposter syndrome.
mm,
And I thought there it was. I'm not going to use any names, of course. People that are doing some amazing work, groundbreaking work that's not a common thing. Okay, it's not yet another. Oh, I don't know. I can't. I'm trying to think of something that's easy, like low hanging fruit. Things that are really more difficult, and won't come on my show because they feel, like I said, imposter syndrome. They don't
mm.
feel that they're qualified to discuss these really groundbreaking, brand new, uh, cutting edge stuff that they're doing. Ah,
Yeah. Yeah, well, we all have doubts and worries,
mhm.
and it's how the brain works. I'm also a career coach. When I reached out and had my friend's help, who was a career coach, and she helped me to realize my dream, it made me want to also become a coach so that I could help people realize their dreams. And really, what's in the way is our mind in most cases,
Money.
and
Hmm.
th that will stop us in our tracks from moving forward towards our dreams. And it's not any fault of ours. It's just how our brains work, that when we step into unknown territory, our minds say, danger, go back. And so stepping into unknown territory takes courage, and it takes setting aside the doubts and the worries so that then you can see what there is to do next.
I I agree with everything you just said, and the only thing I can add to that is you just sometimes just have to trust yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If you've drawn this conclusion, you've looked at the data, you've looked at what you see, you've listened to what you hear, and you've drawn a conclusion. Well, of course you're right. And then you start talking about what you're seeing and you want to change it. And then of course the naysayers are going to come forward and say all kinds of things. At first they're going to um, try to attack what you're saying. And then when that doesn't work, well, then they're going to go after you. And it's critical. It's critical that when they decide to go after you, you realize you've just won. You've just
Mm-hmm.
won when they go after you. It means they've run out of talking points and there's nothing left to do. And all you can do is smile and go, well, I'm sorry, I'd love to talk longer. I gotta go. Or something
Right.
like that. Disentangle yourself in a nice way.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's going to happen. But again, believe in yourself. You have a brain and you're right there. Your feet are on the ground where what the work you're doing is happening. You know
Mm-hmm.
best what's going on, and
Yeah.
just take that self-doubt and push it aside. And I can speak from experience. I stood up against the great and powerful Army Corps of Engineers, and for about a year, I kept having people say to me, "Well, the truth will come out. There's information that you don't have access to, but it'll all come out. Just you wait, you'll see." Well, of course it never did,
Mm.
because it didn't exist. The information proving that I was wrong. Of course, it never came. And you just and you'd be surprised how often things like that are used. Or let's say, I'll give you another example. I was supporting a gentleman, a professor, Ivor Van Heerden at LSU. Me and my group were supporting his work, and a board member of LSU. Let me, for the listeners that aren't aware, Ivor Van Heerden ended up suing the school because they fired him because he was speaking out against the Army Corps of Engineers. Okay, well, a board member of LSU told my husband, well, he's done some reprehensible things, but I can't tell you what they are because they don't exist.
Mm.
Okay, you'd be surprised, and you'd also be surprised at how often people buy that stuff. People buy it. Well, I can't tell you. Well, if you can't tell me why, it's because it's not true. Okay. And I'm sorry, I don't need to be digressing. I'm really stuck on that imposter syndrome. Uh that believe in yourself. Just believe in yourself because you're right. You're right. And you're right. Um um Brinkley Hutchings, you are right at what you're doing. You're getting the kids early, and it's going to be the new way. I mean, children of a generation from now are going to look back in horror at the way we treated the planet and go, what were we thinking?
Yeah,
And the way we treated animals.
yeah. Yeah, we have a lot of work to do. And what gives me the most hope is seeing these children love the natural world so much, and you ask what they want to be when they grow up, and they say, I want to be a scientist, or I want to be a biologist, or I want to be a teacher. And it's so pure and true. And, we just want to give them all the skills that we can that hope and instill in them this love and instill in them this confidence that hopefully they'll carry with them in their lives, that when they grow up, they will follow their dreams to make a difference like that.
I wasn't familiar with the Green Corps until you mentioned it. Can you tell our
Mhm.
listeners about it?
Yes, so it's a grassroots organizing program. It's a year long, and the students, the Green Corps organizers, they work on different community projects in different areas of the country for about 2.5 months at a time. And so the effort is to teach young people how to community organize. How do you bring people together around a cause? How do you make a difference? How do you give a community the skills and tools they need to make positive change?
Wow. And do these Green Corps crop up here and there and then close down, or
This is
are they
a it's a
permanent? Okay.
national organization, and local nonprofits hire Green Corps organizers, similar to kind of AmeriCorps or something like that, where you hire Green Corps organizers to help you with your projects and efforts.
So it's a similar platform as AmeriCorps.
Well, they're different organizations,
I,
but meaning that nonprofits can hire organizers to help them on their local efforts.
well, I'm glad to have learned about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great program.
Thank you. So, we're get about time to wrap up, but is there anything else that you really feel you want to share with with our listeners?
Hmm. Take the time to be with a child outdoors and to try to see the world through their eyes. You don't need to know about the natural world. You don't need to be an expert or anything to be with a child in nature, but just to slow down and to look at the little things, pick up rocks with them, and walk in the creeks with them, because those memories will last a lifetime, and they're such important moments in a child's life, and good for the adults too. But taking a moment to be with children outside, just one child at a time, will certainly make a difference in their lives, and I believe in the future.
And even in an urban setting, there are parks.
You're right. Yeah, go sit under a tree in a park. Look at the leaves that fall on the ground. Watch the ants on the sidewalk. All of nature is all around us and can be found everywhere, even in the middle of cities.
Yeah, pick up a dandelion and blow away the
Right.
white feathery seeds and explain, why that's important. You're right. It's
Right.
all right there. Just
Yes. Yes.
that,
The beauty is all around us, and trying to see the world through that natural wonder that children have is good for us adults too, to help us to slow down and be in the moment, and enjoy this beautiful planet where we live.
I think that's a great note on that. It's good for the children and it's good for us adults too.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Brinkley. I know you had to scramble a little to make time for today, especially since today's the last day of school.
Thank you so much, Sandy. Thank you for having me.
So you're so welcome. And thank you, the listeners, for joining us today. I hope you liked this episode. Be sure to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast on all of your favorite platforms. And remember, no matter who you are, you too can beat the big guys. Okay, stay with me.
Okay.